Council acknowledges the Wadawurrung as traditional owners of this land, and I pay my respects to all elders past and present and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today. This meeting is being broadcast on the internet and the recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Good evening everybody, and thank you for tuning in once again for our final Council meeting this time of 2020. We're really pleased to have you watching via the live stream, and the good news is that all going to plan, we'll actually be welcoming members of the community back into the Council chamber from the first meeting of 2021. So fingers crossed, we will have the gallery back open again. It's been a remarkable year, and for a great many people in our community, an extremely difficult one, both financially and from a health and wellbeing perspective. Huge thank you to everybody in Greater Geelong for the sacrifices and the commitment you've all made during the pandemic. The efforts to adhere to the restrictions, the support that you've all shown to one another, and your ability to find ways to adapt and carry on in the face of what have been huge challenges have been inspiring. Geelong's always been a resilient city, we know that, and once again we've shown that this year. The reward now is that we have a much more positive outlook for Christmas and for the summer period. We're already seeing a lot more people arrive into the region, and I hope you're all looking forward to some time with friends and family. It's been a real joy to see so many people out enjoying the warmer weather and smiling again, and may that continue. So thank you again and have a safe and merry festive season. Now let's begin the meeting. We have a number of important matters on the agenda tonight. While I know councillors will be keen to speak on every item, we have to try to limit the time we are all in the room together. So I will be asking for strict adherence to the speaking time limits by all the councillors, and we've already discussed the idea of not talking on everything if you don't need to. Do we have any apologies? I don't think we have any apologies this evening. Are there any requests for leaves of absence from councillors? No, we're all working through Christmas, I think, as it happens. Good time to get to speak to the community a little more. Declarations of conflict. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda? Councillor Mason?
Item number 1, Mayor Asher.
Item number 1, Councillor Mason.
Item number 3.
Item number 3, Councillor Mansfield. Thank you.
Item 3 as well.
Item number 3, Councillor Contell. Thank you. If conflict does appear during the meeting, please just make that known. Now I need a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 1st of December 2020. Moved Councillor Mansfield, seconded Councillor Sullivan. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. At public question and submission time, we are continuing to accept questions and submissions from the community online while the gallery is closed to the public, and people do regularly send in questions, which is great. We've received 4 questions from the community tonight. Each person who's taken the time to send in a question has now received a response via email. It's also important to note that each councillor has read the questions sent in. We won't read them out in full, but for the record and for transparency, the following people have sent in a question and received a reply. Andrew Keane from Keys Road, Lara, or around Keys Road, Lara. Suzanne Russ, Ryrie Street, Geelong. John Verikios about Better Bike Connections Southern Route. And Rebecca Miller about the sale of 11 Mccarry Court, which is actually an agenda item tonight. Are there any petitions to be tabled? I don't think we have any tonight. Okay, thank you. So we can go straight into the report sections.
One last, I have a conflict on item 13 as well.
Item 13. Thank you, Councillor Contell. It's noted. Okay, so before we go into item 1, Councillor Mason will excuse himself. Thank you, Councillor Mason. And item 1 is the amendment C363 GGEE, Central Road Drysdale rezoning, the consideration of the panel report and the adoption of Amendment 2020. This will be moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the new chair for the planning portfolio, this one has rested solely on my shoulders to move tonight, and it's a wonderful foray into the planning chair to move this item. This amendment seeks to rezone 28 rural living zone properties on and near Central Road, Drysdale, to facilitate residential development. This amendment also includes the overlay controls to manage planning, etc. This has been to an independent panel in January 2020, and due to the coronavirus, it was only heard by that panel in August this year. The independent panel found this development is entirely consistent with the Drysdale-Clifton Springs structure plan and also the city's settlement strategy. The panel supported the Central Road Drysdale developer contributions plan that set out about $7.3 million in new local infrastructure in this space. The panel also considered 76 submissions from the community and supported the proposed development framework plan in response to the concerns around traffic, vegetation, open space, stormwater drain impacts. To say that we have been contacted by the community is probably an understatement. We have received a lot of feedback from the community over the course of the period of 12 months, if not more, about this amendment. I'm pleased to move this amendment tonight. I think it's a long time coming, and I think there are people in the community that rightly have a view in opposite ends of the spectrum. I personally think this is the right amendment, and it's the right time to move it. Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I'll be supporting this amendment this evening. This has been a body of work that's been going for a number of years, and I'm satisfied that the residents have been given, I guess, consistent information over the journey. It has been a parcel of land identified to be developed for a number of years, and this has not been a secret at any point in time. It's been widely, I guess, stated that this would be the case. And here we are today with the work that have been done, and that day has come where we'll be looking to potentially move this item. Where it's placed, it's ideally placed for development. It's central to schools, childcare, the town centre and parks, so it is an ideal piece of land to be sensitively developed through that area. It'll provide substantial diversity in housing options, which is a good result. Hopefully that will also include some social housing components where possible. I note that there was 76 submissions from the community. Now 76 is certainly a large number, but it's not a huge number. I don't think. I think it's an indication of those who are, I guess, directly affected, are voicing their views and opinions, which is fair enough. And the development, or what's proposed, is consistent with the State Government Bellarine Peninsula Distinctive Area Landscape Program, which is important to note because that has been a concern raised that it may be in conflict with that body of work done by DELP through the State Government. But that's not the case, and it is consistent with what DELP has planned. And the DELP policy supports the directions for urban growth in the Drysdale-Clifton Springs structure plan. So that's an important point for consideration, that it is consistent there. And I think it's just worth noting that the final decision will actually be made by the Minister for Planning should it go through this evening. So I'll just leave it there for the moment and see what others have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors? I'll make a comment on this one. This is a terribly difficult decision. It's about as challenging as a planning decision gets, and certainly incredibly high impact on the neighbours and the property owners involved. It's unfortunate when planning decisions leave some property owners happy and some deeply unhappy. And one of the challenging issues for us as councillors is that the community seems to feel that this sends a message that the green areas are up for development. However, it is important to note that from a policy perspective, the particular parcel of land has been zoned residential for decades, as has already been noted. And it's been noted as residential in the Drysdale structure plan. But having said that, the community is quite right in its observation that the structure plan doesn't seem to reflect the intensive development that has occurred in Drysdale during the past 10 years. And for me, context is everything. And I certainly commend the team for the work that they've done with the residents, and I appreciate that both the state and the local government must work within the policy. But this is one of those grey areas where the policy, the timeliness and the processes aren't quite aligning with community expectation. And as a community representative, I think it's always important that we understand the context. On the one hand, I feel compelled to accept this on policy grounds. However, that ignores what are fundamental process issues that resulted in a win-lose outcome to some degree. And compromise should actually be where we land, and listening to the community is our role. And as Councillor Grisbeck and Councillor Harwood have noted, we've heard from a lot of people, many people, and we've heard from them a lot over the last 12 months in the local community. So I won't be accepting this recommendation and supporting it. I believe there is work to do to keep structure plans up to date, review the planning processes that are not timely, and make sure that local government communicates proactively with existing and potential residents so that we don't face these sorts of misalignments in the future. Thank you. Councillor Sullivan.
Madam Mayor, look, this has been a long process. This is not something that's been sprung on us overnight. Naturally, I'd like to thank the officers for the work that went into this amendment. I'd like to thank the community that reached out to us. Many emails over a long time frame were received, and all the submissions, 76, as Councillor Harwood said, is a significant number. The community of Drysdale, Clifton Springs area have kept us councillors in the loop, and vice versa, on this for a long time now. The structure plan of which this is on was made. The argument has been made that it can be out of date. The Bellarine has shouldered a lot of growth that wasn't originally designated when a lot of these floor plans were made, especially the other side of Jetty Road. We have the Bellarine distinctive areas landscape, as said, planning policy, which is designated to come over this area just next year. This is an amendment which has a very extensive area of open land, native vegetation, indigenous grasses, approximately 2,000 trees. There's concerns about infrastructure, traffic jams, bottlenecks. This is not a light item, and I'd just like to say thank you to all those who've been involved. This is really anything that the community has, let us know their opinion, and as community representatives at the grassroots level, I do believe it is our duty to uphold the opinions and wishes of the area, of the people who live directly in these areas that are affected by decisions that we make. And for that reason, I will be voting against the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Aitken, then Councillor Murrahy.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, I too will not be supporting the recommendation to adopt it. I have concerns about development overlays, which actually remove future opportunity for the community to be able to express their opinions. This particular amendment does actually introduce that as a process as well too. I mean, on our agenda tonight, we're actually trying to increase our community engagement processes and policies, but unfortunately our planning rules that are essentially governed by state legislation are well behind what the engagement processes that we're now expected under the Local Government Act. And this amendment with the development overlay for me will cause difficulties in the future as well too, not just with the decision that's been made tonight. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Murrahy.
Yes, thank you. I'd first like to say I'm very aware of the importance to the members down there in the community, and I thank those who have spent many hours, I think, emailing all the councillors. I'm supportive of this amendment. There has been significant community engagement. All the objections have been considered by an independent planning panel, which strongly supports the amendment. Under Section 27 of the Planning and Environment Act, its council must consider the panel report before deciding whether or not to adopt the amendment, as we do tonight. As the panel has said, there is no basis on which the amendment should not be supported on character, traffic, native vegetation or biodiversity grounds. I think this is a very good development. There's certainly been millions and millions of dollars that has been promised to be spent down the Drysdale area on a new pool, on the sporting precinct, and one of the reasons given for those dollars was the expectations of the population increase, and this development forms part of that. I think it's a great, exciting opportunity. It offers new housing, centrally located. There's 2.7 hectares of new public space. There's a new park. There's cycle trails, none of which exist at the moment. There's new Indigenous plantings, new native habitat, new infrastructure, all planned, improved road, pedestrian, cycle network, and the contributions of $557,000 to the local library. And not to mention the contribution to the local economy. I've certainly spoken to a couple of business owners down there, and they're excited and positive about what may be. So I'm certainly supportive of this amendment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murrahy. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like Councillor Murrahy, I'm certainly supportive of what he's just said. some of the things I was going to say, so I won't go over them. But as Councillor Harwood said, at the end of the day, this does go to the state government, the planning minister, and we all know that the local member down there, who's been there for a long time, knows that community very well. So if this is against what the community wishes, certainly the state government will step in. So I'm fully supportive of this.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any other councillors to comment on this? Back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. And as a few of us have said, that this resolution then requests us to be submitted to the Minister for Planning for approval. And we've heard from many members of the community, and I know that we've all received emails and calls and documents, and I know I have read every single one of them, and I've assessed them on the individual basis. Some were clones of the others, but equally important. So I think at this point in time, we'll move the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. On that note, all those in favour? Those against? Motion carried. Thank you. Will Councillor Mason back in again? Which side is he? I think he's in that side. Item 2 is the adoption of Amendment C410GGEE, Armstrong Creek Public Acquisition Overlays, consideration of submissions and adoption, to be moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. I think Councillor Mason can catch up. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And as I said in the first one, this is my second opportunity as the portfolio chair to move something that's probably a little controversial. This amendment proposes a public acquisition overlay to 18 properties across Armstrong Creek for the purposes of road upgrades, drainage and sporting reserves. The exhibition for this overlay was across August and September this year, resulting in a small number of submissions, from the state government, from Bar and Water with no objections, the landowner, DOT being the Department of Transport, and they were seeking the info and agreement in relation to the widening of Barwon Heads Road. The city met with the landowner that made a submission and addressed all the queries that were raised. The submitter was satisfied with the response and has since withdrawn the submission. We now would like to refer this to the independent planning panel for assessment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Harwood.
We see the enormous growth in the south through Armstrong Creek, Warralilly and beyond. And this will continue. This item tonight, the amendment that we're seeking to move, will again help that process down in that area. If it goes through tonight, obviously we'll see the public acquisition overlay will host roads and intersection upgrades that are urgently required down there. Some of the roads infrastructure is in very poor condition. An extension of sporting reserves, an extension of retarding basins and wetlands. So it's an extension of the work that we've done in more recent times through Sparrowvale. And this area continues to boom down there, and we're seeing high demand of population growth through our region, and we have to keep in front of it with the infrastructure. If we don't, we'll have far greater problems on these particular discussions we're having on this item. The expectation from the community is that council and developers do provide the proper infrastructure as promised in a timely manner. So this particular item is important that we make sure that we have the space, the area and the planning done, and it can go through in a timely manner, and those who are investing down in that part of the world with their young families get to enjoy the environment as best as it can. But I can't emphasise enough the importance of what is required down there in the way of infrastructure. And again, it is important we work with the state government to make sure that infrastructure is delivered so that the community down there is the benefactor, and it takes pressure off us as a council when the phone rings hot about different things that are occurring down there. So I fully support this adoption of amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Any other councillors like to comment on this one? Councillor Murrahy.
I'll be very quick. I'm comfortable with supporting this amendment. There's no outstanding objections, with all the original objections either withdrawn or addressed, and there's no need for a referral to an independent panel. I'm in favour of it.
Thank you, Councillor Murrahy. Any other councillors? Back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify something I said at the beginning. I said it was going to an independent panel. It's actually not, because we resolved the resolution with this submission. So it's actually going to be send it to the Minister without going to an independent panel, because there was nothing to resolve. So nothing further to add, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 3, we have a couple of people excusing themselves, Councillor Mansfield and Councillor Contel. Okay, item 3 is the proposed ministerial planning scheme amendment for the Mccarry Centre, to be moved once again. Councillor Grisbeck, welcome to the planning chair, and seconded Councillor Harwood. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Harwood. I've got some support on this portfolio because it's going to be big. This is a recommendation to support the sending of this planning scheme amendment through to the state government, to the minister, to undertake the planning scheme amendment to facilitate the state government's proposed mental health bed facility at Grace Mccarry. This is considered of state significance, and therefore I recommend supporting this ministerial intervention. We all know how important these services are to a community like Geelong, and I think that this opportunity for the state government to fast track the outcome is important. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Harwood.
Madam Mayor, we've seen the increased identification of mental health in the community and its true impact and the devastation that it does cause communities, families and obviously the individuals. So I'm very supportive of this amendment. It would be great if 16 was a lot more, but it's a good start, and again I guess it's showing or recognising the issue as it stands, and these facilities are now starting to become more prominent. They are expensive to build and maintain, but they are critical infrastructure that we need. Mental health, without a doubt, is one of the greatest threats to a healthy and inclusive community. We read the paper daily of people who are suffering mental health issues and what that means in a whole range of behaviours that, if they aren't identified and managed and people aren't receiving the care that they need and medical assistance, then the community is going to be far worse off for it. So it's an appropriate location adjacent to the existing Grace Mccarry Centre, which does incredible work for the community through that specialised care that it offers out there. So I'm fully supportive, and I think I'm pleased to read the state government will be hopefully fast-tracking the outcome. And I think it'll also give us the impetus to put more pressure on the state government for mental health facilities of this nature, of this ilk. Thank you.
Yeah, well said, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Council actually has the Municipal Health Plan, and that plan actually has identified that mental health is actually one of the most significant issues that we need to address in our community. And it actually talks about we should look for opportunities of how we can actually assist in that process. And it's really good that this planning process actually gives us an opportunity as council to actually commit to that municipal health plan. Our youth council has actually also identified that mental health is actually one of the top 3 issues that they presented to us at the end of last year's council term, and I suspect that agenda will continue with the new youth council when it is elected early in 2021. So it is really good, and we do need to congratulate the state government, not just for requesting us to be part of a process to fast track this endeavour, but also for the significant financial contribution that actually they are making on behalf of the citizens of the state of Victoria into the issue of mental health. This will create 16 additional beds just at the Grace Mccarry facility. There's actually my understanding is another 2 other facilities that have been proposed. One's actually in the northern suburbs of Hendy Street in the old Corio North area. And I certainly look forward to that for the significant benefits it's going to give my local population and community that I represent. But I'm really glad that we can publicly support the state government with their endeavour in this and fast-track this proposal from a planning sense. Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'm certainly supportive of more mental health care facilities, as Councillor Harwood has alluded to. Certainly during these COVID periods, we're seeing an increase in mental health issues across the region. But the main issue I have with this is that it's not subject to community engagement, and that is our number one thing that we adhere to as a council, is our community engagement. So on that basis, I can't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't need to add anything further. Thank you.
Okay, so we will put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. We call Councillor Contell and Councillor Mansfield back in. Okay, item 4 is the draft community engagement policy, to be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded by Councillor Mason. Thank you, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much. Mayor Asher, look, it's my pleasure to actually move this one tonight, because it's actually the first official duty I have as the chair of the new portfolio, which is citizenship and engagement. And it actually, we've established that portfolio to reflect the significance of our responsibility to engage with the community. And this is actually a legislative requirement under the new Local Government Act. And we have a responsibility by the 1st of March in 2021. In fact, all local government authorities in Victoria have a responsibility under the Local Government Act to establish a community engagement policy. And some of the important principles that are actually being asked in the legislation for this document are that a community engagement process must clearly define the objectives and scope of what council is attempting to do when it engage. It also must provide access to be objective, relevant and timely information for the community as well too. It also must be representative of the persons and groups affected by the matter. So we're actually sort of setting parameters about how we actually engage with our community. It's also asking us to provide reasonable support to enable meaningful and informed engagement. And I'm really proud of that one, because that's actually about access and inclusion. So it's actually challenging us to actually make sure that our engagement processes that council has actually is accessible and inclusive. And I'm really looking forward to the action associated with that, with the plan. And leading on to that as well too, it's about informing ways in which the community can influence council decision making. So we just make the assumption that people know how to engage with us, and we make the assumption that they are educated about how they engage with us. So this policy is actually trying to put in place some opportunities to educate the community about how you can actually engage with us. On an annual basis in the last few years, council's actually had over 200 engagement processes, Mayor Asher, and I don't think the community will understand that. So essentially we nearly got one every single day that we're launching a new engagement process, and significant resources have been put into that to ensure that we meet our engagement processes. What is good about engagement is it always continually changes, because it's affected by technology, it's affected by access, it's affected by inclusion, and council is committed to continually try to improve its engagement processes. And this document is a draft, and we actually do want to get feedback from the community about this. In fact, I encourage the community to read our neighbouring municipalities' draft engagement policies that they've put out as well too. There's actually some things in the Golden Plains one which would be very good for Geelong to consider as well too. And so I would encourage the community, have a look at ours, have a look at our neighbours, and even have a look at some world best practice in terms of engagement policies, and bring forward those to the council, because we are committed to actually change this if there's some good ideas that are being put forward. And I want to congratulate the officers as well too, because they're not only are we having just a 6-week normal engagement process that we have as well too, in February we're actually going to have 2 virtual workshops. So we're actually going to enable the community to have a capacity to be able to participate from a virtual basis to contribute to the development of this policy. So there's some very good things happening in this space about engagement, and I encourage all councillors to read the document and provide contribution to that if they can. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Well said. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Councillor Aitken's said it all, really. A few things, though. It would also be a great pleasure for me to be the deputy for this portfolio, and this being the first opportunity to speak on it. And really, Mayor Asher, it's a no-brainer. It really is a good idea to put a draft community engagement policy out for community consultation. So this policy is really a marked improvement on our existing policies. And as Councillor Aitken said, it complies with the new 2020 Local Government Act. And that encourages and enhances, it will encourage and enhance diverse and inclusive community participation in decision making. And Madam Mayor, through transparent participation we achieve a deeper understanding which in turn enhances commitment to decisions and promoting openness, confidence and trust. And so I do also commend the officers in the good work that they've done in preparing this. And so through this consultative process, I'm sure the community will find some improvements to this already very good document. And it does discuss when and how the council will engage. It will, and Councillor Aitken has, I won't go through them all, the community engagement principles. But there are a number of engagement processes which are really quite important. It's deliberative engagement and participatory engagement, and now it's open for the community to make their inputs, hopefully through some of these methods. I endorse the motion.
Well done. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other comments? Councillor Contell.
Just a couple of comments. There's no doubt, regardless of the organisation that we're engaged with, whether it's local government or private business or community groups, that the type, the quantity, the quality, the breadth and the ability to be able to adapt to different communication methods will dictate whether you're going to be successful, mediocre or poor in being able to articulate the message, and then also to be able to respond to the feedback that you receive from those messages. And we see it even in our own families when you're communicating with family members. And so this is important. I think what we will learn is much of what we probably already know, which is that it's not only important to communicate outwardly, but it's also extremely important that when we receive feedback, that we then take that feedback with sincerity and also then act on the feedback and respond back. We see it often with a lot of the UDFs that we've been doing of late, where we get significant quantity of communication coming our way. Members are not always, people that are communicating with us are not always aware of what we do with all of that communication. And I notice that the report does call that out, which is terrific, where it says that we've got to report back feedback and close that loop. So it is a very important part of everything that we do, because things break down when we don't have our communication right. We've learnt it amongst ourselves, and we see it every day in the community. So this is very important. What's more important is that when we do get the report back for adopting is that we then really act progressively on that.
Hold on. Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other comments on the community engagement policy? No. Back to Councillor Aitken to close.
Nothing further to add, Mayor Usher.
Thank you. Well, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 5. We didn't have any conflicts on this one, did we? No. This was the Geelong Central Business District Engagement Task Force. The findings report had been moved by Councillor Contell, seconded by Councillor Maloney, and I believe there's an amendment
on that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Does Councillor Maloney support the amendment? You second the amendment? Great. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The amendment is up on the screen. I'll read through it very quickly, if I may. It's that Council notes to thank and note the advice and feedback and suggestions from the task force contained in the Geelong CBD Engagement Task Force report, which identified 4 topics. We know what those topics are. They're related to public transport, on and off-street parking, Central Geelong Marketing Committee and levy, and commercial rates. We're also requesting that the Chief Executive Officer draft terms of reference for the Council's consideration to establish an ongoing engagement process to be conducted 3 times a year with members of the original Geelong CBD Task Force, and that officers, when presenting future reports to Council on the 4 topics, consider and reference the advice and feedback from the Geelong CBD Task Force report. Am I able to talk to the report, or are we voting on the amendment, or we're good with that?
The report. We need to restart the clock, please, Jake. Thank you. Yep, go straight to...
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, as most are aware, on the 30th of June, I actually moved a notice of motion, which was to resolve to call for nominations of prominent, experienced and respected business people in Geelong to form a CBD engagement task force, and to provide feedback and suggestions to Council on those 4 topics which I mentioned earlier. It's timely that this report comes back to us subsequent to the report that we just voted on, which was communication, consultation and asking our community for feedback. It was really pleasing that we had some 31 eligible members which were accepted onto the task force after following a validation period. And the list of participants, I'm sure that most would agree, which are noted in the report, are a very impressive group of individuals. It was great to read in the conclusion that a couple of comments from members, and one being that they believe that this initiative is the best thing the Council has ever done. If we can work together as a team, amazing achievements will result. And I would be more than happy to be part of it going forward. Another comment was, I think the openness of engaging and offering roles to the community and Committee on Task Force is a good thing. So I know that there was some question over the merit of the task force when we first raised it. But personally, I believe now that we have received the feedback, I think few would argue that the feedback is good feedback for us, and that has been acknowledged in the report. There is significant feedback on the 4 items, which I think will help us as we're making decisions in the future, particularly around those topics. Certainly around parking, there was a number of recommendations and suggestions. There was a strong feeling that Council need to look at off-street parking, need to look at the opportunity to build more multi-deck parking opportunities, for Council to look at their own off-street parking solutions, and whether Council should be involved in those, or would they be better off exploring avenues of allowing that to go to the commercial market. I think that's something we do need to look at. There was a real appreciation for the 30-minute free parking trial that we had initiated some 6 months ago, We know that since then we've had some other support around free parking related to COVID, but it certainly was pleasing that the first 30 minutes or even encouragement for us to look at further free parking was something that came out of the task force. As was discussions around the fines that people are attract for overstaying and different types of solutions around rebates and the like. In around transport, needless to say that trackless trams got a lot of support. We know that that would be a significant task. However, it does give us opportunity to lobby different levels of government on that. Moving the bus interchange out of Murrahy Street certainly got a lot of focus as well, and I'm sure that councillors, as they're walking around the streets, do get told that from the community quite regularly. It was around, trying to improve the amenity around that area, allowing those shop fronts to be more visible and to be able to flourish in business by removing that bus port out of that area. Also, there was talking about transport, the East-West link. Ballerine councillors would be more than aware of the push behind that. Also, a city loop, which was talked about, and smaller shuttle buses, which has also been talked about amongst this group. In terms of rates, commercial rates were raised, and the clear message was they wanted them to be comparable to other cities, particularly Wyndham. And in terms of the marketing levy, there was a strong push for us to move away from the charges that we currently have in terms of the marketing levy, and to, whilst they suggest there is a place for the committee, not at the cost. So certainly significant feedback, much more than I can articulate in the next 4 seconds. So I will allow it to others to talk to it further, and I may add some further comments at the close.
Well timed, Councillor Contell. Well, good finish there. It's good that it's facing you. Councillor Maloney.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. I'd also like to thank the task force for their efforts. I'm really pleased to see how Council has engaged with key stakeholders and community members on this report. And I'm also excited to see our future plans for deliberative community engagement being put into action. This is in line with our clever and creative future strategy, and their task force engagement demonstrates some clever suggestions for us to consider. So I really am looking forward to seeing how this is going to engage our community and ensure that we enliven our creative and clever city. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Well done. Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Any other comments? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Contell and Councillor Maloney. Originally, I wasn't in favour of this approach. I wanted to see a more broad-based approach. And I took it upon myself as a duty of care to be an observer of the meeting. And I was very impressed with the meeting. There were a huge diversity of views and a great deal of creativity. So out of that, and I won't repeat all of the things that Councillor Contell has said, but there have been quite a lot of creative ideas. Some of which even include, Councillor Contell, some voucher systems which would be refunding of parking fees. So I do emphasise there was a diversity of views, but some really interesting and creative views. And Councillor Contell also raised the community participation and engagement, and I think therefore it's really good now for the CEO can really put together some terms of reference which will tighten up recommendations from this task force, and will also take into account quite seriously the policy we've just passed, which is a community engagement policy, and we still need to engage the broad spectrum of the community, all different stakeholders, and these really creative views need to be passed across through our extended community engagement. But I do think that Councillor Contell's amendment is very helpful, and I support it.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Look, as the councillor originally seconded Councillor Contel's notice of motion, and I was actually pleased tonight to see Councillor Maloney take on that responsibility. Sometimes in the past that may have been a challenge, Councillor Maloney, but hopefully it's not the case anymore. When Councillor Contel puts up a notice of motion, and it's actually quite easy for someone to second it in the future. But that aside, this is actually a good example of where you lead the horse and the horse actually drinks from the water. It was really sceptical that this actually wasn't going to be a process that would work. But in fact, Councillor Contel led the horse to the water, and the horse has actually drunk some of the water. So I congratulate Councillor Contel for showing leadership on this particular issue, because what it has done, it's actually provided value to the organisation. And that's actually the most important thing about what we're attempting to do here. It's actually going to improve the decisions that we make as councillors because of this process. And why has it been able to do that? Because we actually developed a unique way in which to engage with investors in the city. Now, if we'd used our normal engagement process, which might have been a 6-week, sort of provide feedback and fill in a form or put in an internet response or fill out a survey monkey, we actually didn't get the value from these particular people. What this process actually does, and the future suggested process, which reflects the value that the organisation's received, if we actually can maintain the interest of those investors to participate in a process at least 3 times per year for the next couple of years, we will make better decisions, we will make better informed decisions, and we will actually work very closely with a group that has a significant interest in the revitalisation and recovery of the CBD of Geelong. And that is the people who actually have the money to do it. Not necessarily people who want to talk about doing it and actually want to express an opinion about how to do it. It actually is the investors that are going to lead the CBD and recover the CBD, not only from the transformation that's occurring over the last 5 to 10 years in Geelong, but the last 9 months which has occurred in COVID. And I thank Councillor Contel for his leadership on this issue, but more importantly, I thank all those investors who actually put forward their participation. And then, as Councillor Mason said, it actually was a very good process when you saw the engagement from those people participating in that process. Thank you.
Excellent point. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Contel, for putting this forward. I too had some concerns initially, really more around process issues than the substance of what was put forward previously. I thank Councillor Contel for what he's put forward here, and in asking the CEO to put to draft some terms of reference for this, so we can get a really robust framework around an ongoing a task force here. I too was an observer in one of the sessions, and the discussion was interesting. I do think it's important we keep in mind that this is a fairly defined group of people that we're getting feedback from. There are voices that won't be heard in this, and it's important that we capture those in other ways. And if we're not, we may need to look at maybe a different mechanism to get those voices heard, because although I certainly hear Councillor Aitken, it is important that we listen to those who are those with the deep pockets who are investing in our CBD. There are also a range of other business owners and interests in that area who may be who have a voice that needs to be heard, because they too play an important role in the CBD. So, and have an interest in what that will look like, and they may have slightly different views on some of these issues. So, I just think it's important that we do capture the breadth of perspectives out there. This is a really valuable one, and I think it's it's great keeping it fairly focused by outlining who should be part of this and what they should be focusing on. But there are a range of other issues and a range of other voices that we just need to make sure we think about when we're making decisions in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Harwood.
Mayor Asher, I also observed the task force sessions, and there was a really interesting discussion over the 2 or 3 groups that were having the talk about the CBD and some of the issues that they raised. Some of the issues have been around for some time. Some are, I guess, of a newer nuance. But I was pleased to hear public transport servicing in particular. That's been one of the banes of our life as a councillor. I've been trying to work through public transport issues through this CBD, whether that's through bus connections or how the train system's working, or even the movement of trucks through Ryrie Street, that old chestnut that seems to go on and on and on, when we still don't have a resolution we can agree on. So that was a good part of the discussion. The on and off street parking, I think, is a really critical discussion. I'd like to see that discussion really extended to the discussion around should council be in the business of off-street parking. I think that's a good discussion to extend off there. I think that would also be a good discussion for us to continue with. I also just note, maybe it's a slight bit of devil's advocate, but some of the decisions that may, or some of the advice or ideas that come out, while they're all well-meaning and well-supported in that particular group, they can and may have really significant impacts on us as a council and other things that we are intending to do in and around that area. And so we need to look at what cost that may be to the council and ultimately the community. I think, and obviously with the commercial rates, also a good discussion to have in an open, transparent manner. But again, for every action is a reaction. So we need to be really cognizant of that, have the discussions, have them out there, have them robust, absolutely. But we just still need to keep an open mind as to what some of the results may be if we are to just follow a path without the due diligence around it. So I'm really comfortable with where it's sitting now, and let the discussion continue. And I think Councillor Mansfield raises a very good point about it's great to have, in this case, investors looking to wanted to continue to do that in our CBD. Fantastic, but there's also other issues to consider and other persons to consider who also use the CBD, which is just a part of our region, and they also need to be considered when any discussion is taking place and decisions are potentially being made about the true whole effect on the region and not just the CBD. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Murrahy.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I feel obliged to speak on this because I voted against it. As most know, I didn't support it originally. And I asked myself the question, have I come around? I'm not real sure just yet, but I'm certainly open-minded. And I too listened in fact, the 3 sessions, and it was enjoyable actually to listen to the ideas put forward, suggestions about the CBD moving forward and what could be achieved. So yes, I was sceptical about where it may take this council, but I'm confident now that there'll be some positive outcomes in relation to it, and I look forward to see what does come from it. Thank you.
Councillor Murrahy. I'll just make a couple of quick comments. I'd agree with Councillor Murrahy in that it was very interesting, the comments. I think attended one or two. I'm really heartened by the fact that most of us did actually observe at least one session. So we're obviously all very interested in it. I'd like to congratulate the team on running what was a very professional series of sessions. I think it was really well done, and the report is reflective of that too. It's a really enjoyable read. And I also want to congratulate Councillor Contell for being persistent and bringing it to the chamber in the first place, because it was not an easy task to get it through, and there was an awful lot of fear and pushback that you had to wear for that. So congratulations on actually pushing through and sticking to your guns with it, because I think it has actually resulted in a really good report. The one comment that I would make too is we do need to make sure, similarly, the breadth of input the Bellarine businesses as well. So while the CBD of Geelong is discreetly the focus here, there is a bit of comment around other parts of the region that are running businesses, and some of these business owners have businesses in other places, but is there some symbiotic opportunities that we can consider too? So any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Contell to close.
Well, that's one of the most loveliest moments I've had on this council life, so thank you, everyone.
Hold
I'm
on to
feeling,
it.
Quite buoyed by all this. I feel like I'm in the house of love. I do take on board, with all seriousness, the feedback, and I understand why people may have been sceptical to start with. First of all, I do thank all of those who participated. As I said, when we moved the notice of motion, they've done that free of charge and gave up their time willingly to provide feedback to us. I also take on board, that it is only one voice. Let's also remember, though, that we do have a number of forums where we go and seek information and feedback from different groups. And I think maybe this is an example where you do sometimes have to go to specific groups to be able to get that voice, because otherwise, if you have everyone in the same room, it's a bit hard to get those points across. So, we have the Aboriginal Action Plan Advisory Group, we have the Multicultural Action Plan Advisory Group, we've got Access and Disability, we've got the Principal Bike Network. So we do have other areas that we pull a lot of information from, and this is just another one of those areas that we've done that with. I take on board what Councillor Murrahy articulated, that we'll have to just see what comes of it. Really, that will be up to us, because item 9.3 is asking officers to reference and to consider this feedback when they come back to us with future reports. It's up to us then whether we want to take those suggestions on board and emerge them and embed them into our future decision making. That's what that will be. That will be all part of, and that'll be up to us whether we decide to take them on board. There's been a lot of great suggestions, even in the task force report, where it goes through every item and then says other suggestions, things like smart solutions that prevent people from moving their cars every couple of hours. That is something that the CEO, Gareth Smith, and the officers are actually working on. So there is stuff that we are actually working on. Enough said.
Well done. Okay, on that very positive note, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? Those against? Carried. Okay, well done. Okay, item 6 is the Community Life Advisory Committee's annual report, to be moved by Councillor Mansfield and seconded Councillor Mason. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. So this is I think a really nice way to end the year and reflect on some of the achievements of this council, and in particular, getting the theme of community engagement. These advisory committees comprise various members of our communities who have expertise in particular areas, who provide feedback and advice to council on a whole range of different issues, not necessarily always obviously connected to the theme of the advisory committee. I was fortunate enough to be involved in a couple of our 4 advisory committees, the Killinich, which was formerly the Coringa Aboriginal Advisory Committee, and also the Women and Community Life Advisory Committee. I was chair of both of those committees throughout the last term, and some of the work that was done was absolutely outstanding. 2020 wasn't the COVID didn't stop the work of these groups. They still managed to do some fantastic work, despite the fact that we were very constrained by the COVID restrictions. Normally these groups are characterised by a lot of not just face-to-face meetings to discuss their business, but also a whole range of community events and community-facing activities that we weren't able to hold. But we did see some creativity there, and a lot of events moved online, which was fantastic. There was, as an example of something that was, I thought, a really creative approach, was during NAIDOC week. There was a virtual tour of a whole lot of significant Aboriginal sites around Geelong, and so it shows that we were able to pivot and embrace those really important events and occasions despite the challenges that were being faced. A couple of other highlights. We signed off on our first reconciliation action plan, which was a huge achievement, and implementing that will now be the real challenge going forward. We also had International Women's Day celebration. We had a guest speaker, was Nova Peris, and there was also the great work of the Women in Community Life Advisory Committee and also Women in Local Democracy, who put in a huge amount of effort to try and encourage women to run in the recent council elections. And I think they did an outstanding job. We've increased the number of women on council, which is fantastic, but that was a really important piece of work in really, really difficult circumstances. So well done. There's been a great result across the state in terms of women's representation in council, so it's a fantastic outcome. I'll leave it to some of the others to speak if they'd like to about the advisory committees that they were on. And I'll make a couple of thank yous at the end.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I'd like to acknowledge and thank all the councillors that were involved in these advisory committees over the last year. Councillor Contell, Councillor Mansfield, and I think Councillor Aitken. They'll be, having read the reports, there's been a huge amount of work done, as Councillor Mansfield's just mentioned, and the way ahead, for example, with Killinjit, formerly the Coringa group. Killinjit actually is translated to everyone talks, and I think that's really a very nice word to use now, in that, as Councillor Mansfield just mentioned, there is the Reflect reconciliation plan to take forward this year. And so that's a really daunting job, and it'll be for me to walk alongside the Killinjit committee. I'd chaired my first meeting last night with Multicultural Action Plan, and I was amazed at the amount of work that's been done, promoting and participating online grants for the called community leaders, the various amounts of work that have been done in assisting the multicultural community in response to COVID, and support for international students, and it goes on and on. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I commend the reports. I advise everyone to read them and see all the good work that's been done, and I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other comments? Councillor Grisbeck.
Madam Mayor, I support what has already been said, but looking forward on these, I'm also looking forward to new advisory committees like the Sustainability Advisory Committee that we've got open for engagement at the moment, seeking up to 12 members to be part of that group. So this is a real good opportunity. These advisory committees are a really good opportunity for the council and the councillors to talk to members with their expertise and harness that information and use that for the best use of the community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely, and those expressions of interest on that Sustainability Advisory Committee are open until Friday. So there's still opportunity to apply. Any other comments? Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Mason and Councillor Grisbeck, for your comments. One thing I should mention is that during the year, quite an extensive piece of work was done reviewing the role and function of the advisory committees, and particularly looking at whether we could use the real breadth and depth of talent we have in those to greater effect to inform what we do as a council. And so that piece of work has been undertaken and will hopefully be implemented over the coming year to our advisory committees. And really, going back to that theme of community consultation, it's really about getting doing a better job of engaging with the community and using those groups to inform what we do in I guess, maybe in a better way than we've been able to do in the past. So that's a really exciting piece of work that I think we'll start to see the impacts of over the coming year. I'd just like to thank all the committee members who give up a huge amount of their time. They are volunteers and their advice is really valued. And I'd also like to thank the Community Life team led by Robin Stevens for all of the work that they have done on those committees. It's a lot of work and not always as recognised as maybe some other more, other areas of council business, but really, really important work. So thank you very much for everything you've done.
Very true. They're the quiet stars, aren't they? Okay. Put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7 is the proposed sale of Part 11 Mccarry Court, Corio, and I believe Councillor Grisbeck is going to move an amendment to be seconded by Councillor Aitken. We'll go straight into the amendment. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and you'll see that on the screen. This amendment has been a long-term engagement with the organisation and the CEO to get an outcome that will benefit our community, and it was a deferred item from before the election, and this is hopefully an outcome which our community will be proud of. Our community may not be as organised as other communities, but don't let that fool you. Our community is engaged, they do care, and we will need to respond accordingly. Like the previous item in relation to the draft engagement policy for council, we needed to hear from them. Whilst this proposal is looking to sell the land that is surplus to open space requirements, it gives us council an opportunity to really reinvest in open space within the Rosewall area. We have asked the CEO in this amendment to consider a budget item to master plan the area, given that the Department of Education land is vacant next door to the $3.7 million Rosewall neighbourhood hub that Council invested in and opened in October 2019. During this process, I wanted to hear from all members of the community, including those that use the community centre. What do you want to see here? I would say to the community. What should we have here? We should not assume or tell our community what they need. This is something that we need to engage with them in the best way that fits that community. And we think that the master planning option around this area is the best way. Recently, Councillor Aitken and I had a barbecue in the Rosewall Park, which is right behind the community centre, with a group called the Little Miracles Home Group. It's great that Angus and the team invited us down there to see many members of this community really proud of their park and wanting to see the improvements and investment in this area. Thank you to the officers, Michael Degena and Travis Kerwood, for really working with us in relation to getting an outcome that is going to be beneficial for the community. I'll have more to say in the closing, Madam Mayor.
Well said, Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher, and thank you, my partner in crime, for the northern part of the city of Greater Geelong in Councillor Grisbeck. It's quite fascinating because when this first came to us, it was all about, well, this is just surplus land, Councillor Aitken and Councillor Grisbeck. Like we've had a look on the map and, you've got plenty of open space to fulfil the responsibilities that you have. Then we were educated that there was actually a structure plan from 2012, which actually had a concept plan for the site location. And because this park actually is called Connections Park because there's a western part, a middle part, and an eastern part. And the structure plan actually tried to give some love and attention to that particular site location. We move 8 years after that structure plan was adopted, and finance have rightly said, oh, this is just surplus to the needs of the organisation, forgetting that the community was still living in that precinct and opportunity. And what the amendment motion tonight actually tries to say and recognise that it has been unloved. There was a plan that has not been implemented, but the council is trying to look for an opportunity to actually show some love to this piece of open space and also to the broader community that resides around this site location, which we know as Rosewall. And I'm really pleased that I think we have found the right consensus position on this between the need financially to say it's surplus to our needs, but importantly to address the concerns that there isn't a overall loved piece of open space at that site location. And the master plan proposal that's presented actually talks about some opportunities that the community has raised with Kylie and I. They've actually said they want a community garden in this public open space. They said they would love more interactive activities that could address the need for young people, both toddlers and teenagers, to actually utilise the public open space. And that might be a skate park. It might be some more interactive activities that are now being developed in other parts of Geelong as well too. So I think the proposal to sell is the right one because the community is going to get a broader benefit from it now. And that broader benefit is a commitment to actually undertake a master plan for the remaining public open space areas that exist and actually work with the state government if they do choose to sell the old Rosewall primary school site, which is just a vacant site, which was actually burnt down because it was vacant and does need to be addressed to improve the amenity for everybody in that area. So I think this is a good win-win for council, community, and I'm pleased that we're able to bring it before council.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Any other councillors wish to comment on this one? I suspect we all have great faith in you and your knowledge of your community, the pair of you. It's actually a really terrific amendment, so congratulations to you both. No other comments? We'll go back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you. And I'd just probably like to point out to those that are listening that this land is open space land that is being sold, and in accordance with Section 24A8 of the Subdivision Act, these funds do need to be reinvested into open space. So this is the amendment, which is at 10.2.2, that says that the net sale proceeds need to be investment back into open space. So we're hoping that at some future budget arrangements we might be able to implement such master plan should that be successful through the budget process. And we're looking forward to working with that community, really identifying what is required and what's needed and what's the big picture items that community would really like. And no communities are the same. So we can't assume that what works in Lara or Highton or Armstrong Creek would work here and vice versa. So we're really passionate about hearing the voices of that community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Well done. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 8 is the proposed sale of Part 137 Mercer Street, Geelong, to be moved by Councillor Harwood and seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Harwood.
Madam Mayor, the report seeks council approval for the sale of part of 137 Mercer Street in Geelong. It's another piece of the puzzle of the construction of the civic accommodation. The land in question is marked. There's Lot 2 on the proposed development, or the proposed subdivision, and the sale would be to Quintessential Equity, the developers of the new civic precinct at that address, and we actually see the construction coming out of the ground today, and it's quite exciting to see. It actually shows that the city has made a commitment. We're moving on with it, and all being well, it'll be on time in the mid-2022. So the council resolved to sell part of Mercer Street back in 2019. At that meeting to allow for the construction of the new civic precinct as originally designed. However, the final stage of the council accommodation building and basement area and the acquisition of adjoining Crown land made it necessary to alter the original design, necessitating the statutory process we're going through. But the sale of this land will also help fund acquisition of other parcels in the vicinity. But importantly, I think the building's already, with its design, is already demonstrating, even through the COVID process or the COVID dilemma that we've been experiencing, that I'd respectfully suggest that this building's already showing the capacity to be adaptable in its use and in its construction. And I think the end building that we're looking to bring to the public, I think they'll be they'll be proud of it. I think they'll be surprised in what the building offers, and its in its design and its the use of local workforce, which I think has also been very important. So I'll leave it there for the moment and hear what others have to say. But I think this, as I say, it's another piece of the puzzle, and we keep moving forward on it.
Great. Councillor Harwood. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Harwood has covered everything, so nothing further at this point.
Anybody else wish to comment on this one? Everybody's very aware of the time limits. It's great. Councillor Harwood to close.
Thank you. Look, again, as I say, I think it'll be great to see whether it's our local media or our local community getting in and making comment as this particular building takes shape and comes out of the ground. And again, I think when they see some of the materials being used and the work that's gone behind the design in particular, I think they'll be hopefully pleasantly surprised, and the building will deliver what we have all hoped it will do with the work that's gone on and the discussions we have had as councillors and what we have, looked forward to producing, because our fingerprints are all over it, and I'd like to think that the community will get a good result and good value. There'll be further discussion, I know, about how it may present itself in the end, but that's a discussion for another day. But I think we're in a great position now, and as I say, another piece of the puzzle will tick it off, hopefully.
Yes, well said. Thank you, Councillor Harwood. So all those in favour of this one? Those against? Carried. Item 9 is the road deviation of Part Corio Street, Geelong, to be moved by Councillor Murrahy and seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Murrahy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is another piece in the puzzle. This report recommends Council resolve to deviate approximately 147 square metres of Corio Street, Geelong, to a new road off Bailey Street. This will allow for the construction of a car park entrance off Corio Street to the future civic precinct. Council has the power under the Local Government Act to deviate a road, including a road on Crown land. Council initiated the process for this road deviation on the 8th of September, when it resolved to invite public submissions about the proposals. No submissions were received. If Council approves the road deviation tonight, consent would then be required from the Minister for Energy, Environment and Climate Change. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murrahy. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, Councillor Murrahy has covered that item, so I don't need to say anything further. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment on this one? I think it's quite self-explanatory. Back to you, Councillor Murrahy. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 10 is the debt management policy, to be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded Councillor Sullivan. Thank you. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Matt Asher. Wearing my finance chair hat, this is one of my responsibilities to actually bring this before Council. In fact, we have a statutory requirement every 4 years to review this particular policy. We've done that, and in fact, most of the changes are cosmetic in essence. They're updating employment titles throughout the document. They're updating rate notification titles, and importantly though, one of the changes that I'm pleased with, the policy now actually also refers to our rate assistance and hardship policy that we have. So it actually provides a linkage for people to be able to access this and say, well, we actually do have a hardship policy that is attached to our debt collection and management system policy that we have. And one of the other things I just want to mention as well too is that we still can do things outside of the policy. And an example was with COVID, Council actually froze debt collection till the end of October. So essentially from the announcement of COVID around about 26th of March until the end of October, we actually had a debt collection freeze for the City of Greater Geelong. So we still, if we can help our community when we can, we do it. And it's the same as our debt management policy. Yes, it is very prescriptive in terms of what we do in terms of recovering the rates and other funds that the community owes in terms of our fees and charges and other ways in which you generate income. But there is some compassion in it as well too, associated with hardship. And I commend the policy to the Council tonight and encourage all councillors to support the adoption of it.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Very well articulated. Councillor Sullivan.
Madam Mayor, the policy we have here outlines how staff will manage and recover outstanding debt, including rates, special rates and charges, waste charges, interest and other types of debt. It does require the review to happen every 4 years. Following the most recent review, the updated version was presented to and approved by the Policy Review Committee. It's also been approved by the City's Executive Leadership Team for approval, and it's hard to talk of these at length after the apt Councillor Aitken has been through it, but it's a good update and I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Anybody else wish to comment on the debt management policy? I think it's back to you, Councillor Aitken.
Nothing further to add, Mayor.
Okay, we'll pop this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you, that's carried. Item 11 is the council meetings for 2021, to be moved by Councillor Maloney and seconded by Councillor Sullivan. Thank you, Councillor Maloney.
Mayor Asher, this report recommends that Council endorse the proposed 2021 meeting schedule. This includes 12 meetings, 8 of which will be conducted at Council Chamber at City Hall and 4 meetings at locations across the Greater Geelong. This will include the return of the public in-person attendance for the first time since March, exciting, and this is likely to happen at the first meeting at the start of this year, proposed for the 2nd of Feb. So meetings will be at 6 o'clock with Council's endorsement, an hour earlier than in 2020, with the intent of increasing the community participation, which we've heard a lot about tonight. The 4 regional meetings will be spread across Bellarine, Brownbill, Cardinia and Windermere in order to give community members an opportunity to view and participate in the decision-making close to home. Further opportunities include a planned introduction of ward-based listening posts where the community will have a chance to raise and discuss local issues. Mayor Asher, I move to endorse the proposed schedule, which will keep our Tuesdays certainly busy.
Absolutely, it will. Councillor Sullivan.
Mayor Asher, Councillor Maloney has said it all really. We may be going back to a 12 meeting per year structure, but that does not mean we will be any less busy or dealing with any fewer issues which come before the Chamber. It's fantastic to see the continuation of our meetings out in the community with 1 per ward, which will be fantastic, and also hopefully an adaptation of listening posts as well. Council meetings can be quite difficult for members of our community to attend to, depending on certain lifestyles. So a way for us to get out in the community, do listening posts on the weekends in busy areas, sporting areas, shopping strips, the likes of that. It's a fantastic way for us to meet our community face to face. There will be more intensive meetings, there will be longer meetings, but everyone up here is up for the good fight, so looking forward to them.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. And just to put a bit of context around the listening posts too, the roadshow that we did with the budget last year, where we all went out to our different wards with our little card tables and our answers, and a trustee council officer by our side to answer questions, were really successful. And certainly in the Bellarine we had such a good time. We did, I think, 3 extras. So that was one of the reasons that we thought we'd go out into the community. Councillor Aitken.
Thanks, Mayor Asher. Look, I just wish to emphasise the point that look, COVID has significantly impacted on our capacity to interact with the community through our council processes in terms of our formal chamber meetings. I mean, tonight's a good example where the community is still restricted to actually be here. One of the joys of the last 3 years of council was our regular community council meetings, and in fact I think it is a legacy we need to revisit again when COVID restrictions are removed, because I really enjoyed the opportunity to hear directly from the community in that council chamber setting, and in fact it did influence some of our decisions that we do make as a council. And I can remember one where we actually were down at Leopold, and the lady presented to tell us about the dogs in St Leonard's, where we were blocking the going to introduce dogs off lead area, and she actually was able to articulate to us how you couldn't actually physically get there based on the evidence that was presented for us, and because of that it influenced our decision, so we didn't adopt it, and then further investigation was undertaken, and a better outcome and better decision was made because of that. I can also remember that a gentleman turned up with some weeds in his hand, and I think at the time Mayor Harwood and Deputy Mayor Murrahy both went and visited the weed man, to actually find out, precisely what was his grievance, But the good thing was, because he had that opportunity to interact with us at that particular level with our community engagement meetings, it actually was a very good process. And COVID has destroyed that capacity to be able to do it. But I think we've now turned that into an opportunity by moving to one formal council meeting a month, by committing to having listening posts in our community, which we can try and engage directly with our community and limit the number of numbers and interaction that can occur. So we've looked for opportunities to maintain our principle about engagement with our community in our formal structure that we do have. And I think it will also give us, we're talking as a collective group, we want to give more time in our decision-making processes, and I think having essentially a full month between each decision-making process that we are still meeting every Tuesday night, so do not make the community think that by moving to one Tuesday every month that we are resting. No, we are putting aside those Tuesday nights for strategic discussions, for briefings from the community, so we're actually having a full agenda in those periods as well too. So I think COVID has restricted us, but we have turned it into an opportunity to do some unique things during this particular period.
Yep. Very good point. Beautifully timed as well, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you. I'd just like to add that both Councillor Aitken and myself, that we have a major engagement in our Windermere community, and all the meetings were really well attended in our community, and so we're really pleased that we are keeping some of those regional meetings, and the listening posts, as you said, Madam Mayor, are really, really important. And for Councillor Maloney's point, Windermere holds the title of the most people attending those regional meetings, so you've got some work to do. Thank you.
The challenge has been set. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Contell.
Yeah, maybe I'm going over old ground, but that's okay. I think it is important to reiterate that this is not about trying to reduce the amount of engagement that we have with the community, and nor are we trying to establish less meetings as such, but just trying to be more effective and efficient, and maybe the term that we use often, clever and creative, ensuring that we actually deliver on some of the tasks that are presented to us. The listening posts will be a tremendous way of engaging at grassroots level. Many here in the chamber have held listening posts in the past, whether it be during campaign time or other, and I think we all understand that that's where you get that real good feedback, and the amount of RFS or request for service requests that we can put forward on the back of those meetings will be significant, because we will hear about all the things that are going on in that area or in people's lives at that particular time when they're speaking to us. So I think that will be terrific. So getting back to face-to-face meetings will be wonderful. I think tonight there would have been certainly quite a number of people coming in here to talk to us about C36 amendment, 363 amendment, but those people that couldn't attend in person today should know that we have also heard them through the opportunities that were created that Councillor Aitken mentioned. So we've been able to get through this last period of time that's been challenging, but still hear the community. But going forward, it will be terrific to be back to face-to-face types of meetings.
Yep, absolutely. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Maloney to close.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, given my recent induction and I guess wording up on the code of conduct, I think we need to investigate why our councillors are engaging with someone known as the weed man, but I think that's for another meeting. But I do want to reiterate that the meetings have also been streamed online, and that will continue throughout 2021, which makes them much more accessible for our community, which I'm excited about. Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely spot on. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 12 is the Planning Authorisation Council to Staff, to be moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded by Councillor Harwood. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is one of the normal planning authorisations that comes through to us when we have a new staff member joining the planning team. This is to appoint a new town planner, Abdullah Aitken, and a principal planner, business facilitation, Zach Van Grondel. We need to do this authorisation so that they can exercise those statutory powers under the Act and allow them to fulfil the requirements of their role. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Harwood.
Nothing further, thank you.
Right, Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you. Said it all. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, item 13 is tender T20000051, supply of concrete and concrete work. So Councillor Contell is excusing himself because he has a conflict. So we'll wait till he leaves. This is to be moved by Councillor Mason and seconded by Councillor Maloney. Okay, go Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Council is recommended to award a $10 million contract for the supply of concrete and concrete works to 12 preferred tenderers. Now, I'm pleased that we're able to say that these tenderers are Geelong owned and operated, and all have employees that live in the region, and it really does follow our procurement policy. The contracts will be for 12 months and include an option to extend for 12 months. And the 12 tenderers that have been approved are Armstrong Creek Concreting and Outdoor Construction Proprietary Limited, CCP Group Proprietary Limited, the Walters Business Trust, Matt Loader Proprietary Limited, Coppard's Concrete Construction Proprietary Limited, Fulton Hogan Industries Proprietary Limited, Norris Plant Hire Proprietary Limited, Fibertech Services Proprietary Limited, the O'Toole Family Trust, Defran Concreting, Vince and Anna Rotoroti, and the Curbing Settlement in Geelong Curbing. So this is all really good news. We have 12 very competent tenderers that are all local and can be called upon to do the extensive new and renewal works that we expect.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Maloney.
The growth that's set to occur in our region, I think this is really exciting news, and I think that these businesses also being locally employed will provide a lot of economic benefits to our region. Also, if Council awards the contract, the service will start on the 17th of December 2020, this Thursday. Nothing further. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Maloney. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Mason.
Nothing further to add, Mayor Asher.
Thank you. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Councillor Contell back in. Okay, we have a commercial matter as item 14. So I'll need a mover and seconder to consider this matter in confidential. Moved Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Mansfield. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Item 15 is the community grants. It's also a confidential item. So may I have another mover and seconder? Moved Councillor Contell, seconded Councillor Mason. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. And the last one is item 16, the Audit and Risk Committee summary report to be heard in confidential. May I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Sullivan. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Okay, section C, the exciting part, the notices of motion. Councillor Contell is bringing a notice of motion about free parking. What a surprise. In 2-hour on-street parking in central Geelong. Thank you, Councillor Contell, for bringing this and presenting it to us tonight. Can I please have a seconder? I believe Councillor Maloney is going to second. Thank you, Councillor Maloney. So, Councillor Contell, over to you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The reason for bringing this notice of motion tonight is somewhat similar to some of the discussions that we've had throughout the night, one being around the task force, one being around communication and engagement, is really to try and gain some further information on this topic that we've now been discussing for some time. We're all aware that we had a 30-minute parking trial, which is about to commence again in February, post the support that we've been offering around CBD parking through the COVID packages. We've supported a number of initiatives through those COVID packages to the tune of about 19 odd million, I believe, is the number. And part of that is the parking support. As we continue to navigate our way through COVID and beyond, it's important that we continue to try and ensure that the CBD has a healthy heart, as we've been referred to previously, but also that our community is appropriately supported, as is small business. What does that mean? Not sure exactly what that will look like going forward, but certainly gaining information from the 30-minute parking trial will be valuable for us to be able to make decisions into the future as to what we may or may not want to do around on-street parking. What I would like to try and obtain is some further information from officers specifically around the first 2 hours of parking that someone may utilise, the 2P zones only in the CBD. So, as everyone here would be aware, currently our support package is offering free parking throughout the CBD, regardless of time zones, and in most cases on and off the street. The information I'd like to gather here for councillors to be able to consider further in the future in terms of making decisions around on-street parking is specifically around the 2P zones and specifically the first 2 hours of parking. That may come back with a whole raft of information and recommendations, particularly around solutions in terms of how we measure parking and the amount that people use it and the amount of times they move their vehicles and the like. No decisions today. Really, the decision that's being asked to be made is can we allow the officers to go away and do that research and then come back to us with that information in the new year so that we can then decide whether we want to use that or not going forward.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Contell. Councillor Maloney.
Councillor Contell. Many Australian cities have offered free parking over the COVID period to attract visitors back to their CBDs. We're talking Adelaide City, Melbourne City Council and Perth have all offered free parking for their constituents to soften the blow of this pandemic. Now, we're on the road to recovery in some degree of normalcy, but we also need to establish the recovery for our local economy. So we as a council need to know all the impacts that are implementing a longer-term free parking arrangement or two-hour parking on street. So we've received a number of significant feedback from constituents on this initiative. Some hail it as a great incentive for encouraging people back to the healthy heart of our city. And we've also heard stories of workers park hopping and hogging parks around crucial areas such as our hospitals. Others have cited it as a lost opportunity to reduce traffic congestion, encourage and prioritise walking, cycling and public transport. And as a council, we really need to be on the front foot to look for solutions, like Eddie mentioned, that create more attractive, high-amenity cities that also include environmentally friendly transportation options. But at this time, it really is crucial that we be smart and sensitive in our initiatives and our spending, and we also need to consider the further facts, which is why I'm in support of this report, so that we can consider that decision with the robustly researched report, considering the new data and modelling that's been captured while we've been under COVID. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
Very well expressed, Councillor Maloney. Thank you. Any other comments on this notice of motion? Councillor Aitken.
Councillor Asher, unless I'm preempting some other comment, I actually find it really refreshing what I've actually heard thus far about this particular issue, and I actually want to congratulate Councillor Maloney for what she has just spoken about in terms of this particular issue, because some of the debate in the past has actually been, like cars versus bikes versus walking versus other modes of transport. And Councillor Maloney has actually summed it up very well, what is attempted to really be addressed with this. And we do have some hotspots that hopefully if the CEO doesn't just focus on saying, well, this is about 2-hour parking, if the CEO actually takes this as an opportunity to actually be clever and creative with some solutions to come forward to us, this is an opportunity to do that by February 2021. And by that, we may actually be able to come up with some unique solutions associated with the hospital hotspot under this request that's occurring there. We may be able to come up with some dynamic pricing opportunities that occur after the free 2 hours, because this motion talks about free 2 hours, but it doesn't. But the CEO might actually say, look, there's some really dynamic pricing opportunities that could occur after the 2 free hours actually exists on the period. And so I actually encourage that the CEO take up the discussion that we're now having as a collective group of councillors to actually look for some clever and we really want some clever and creative ways at which to recover the CBD associated with a very important means at which 80% of people actually travel to the CBD, which is actually by vehicle. So if we can actually embrace that 80% of the traffic movement coming into the CBD is by vehicle, and we utilise our capacity for 3 hours, free parking in 2 hours on our on-street one with clever and creative solutions, I actually think the community will be the winner of this, and we will actually be able to recover and move forward from the significant demise of our CBD associated with COVID-19 that we've experienced since mid-March. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I wanted to just further touch on the topic that Councillor Maloney has raised in relation to hospital parking. I think this is a really good opportunity, and I'd look to the CEO for this in this report to really try and address the parking around the hospital precinct. I think it's so important when you are, unfortunately, some of the time when you do attend hospital, it's not always for a nice thing, and it can be quite an emotional time. So trying to make the parking as easy as possible around those areas without, having necessarily all the staff park in those particular zones. I know during COVID, we did work with Barwon Health in terms of allowing staff to park quite near the hospital, given that they were the first responder type employees that the council thought were really important to be able to get to and from their vehicles pretty easily, given the work that they were doing during COVID. So I would reiterate that I would ask the CEO during this process to really find a solution that can help fix that hospital parking area, because we are getting more and more people attending those facilities and the doctors' rooms around that. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Good point. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I also support this recommendation, though one nuance I might have is that when we're checking the potential benefits and implications, I'd like to think that we're not only looking at two-hour parking, but the other creative opportunities that the 2-hour parking may negate or enhance. But there are other creative opportunities. Only at the last meeting did we pass the smart city digital economy, digital meters, and I would like to see really a more surgical approach, if I could use that word, where we target the hotspots. We target the areas that are being overused and in fact maybe encourage a quicker rotation. So all of these things need to be considered in the benefits and implications of whether we do it or we don't, our gains and our losses. But I do support having any information, any evidence that can come in, and I thank Councillor Contel for this initiative.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other? Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, I too support getting a report. I'm always happy to receive considered evidence on which we can base further decisions. I'll note that some of the discussion was, I guess, alluding to having things included in the report that perhaps aren't being necessarily asked by this motion. So things outside of that 2-hour on-street parking. I mean, it's fairly specific, this motion, in what it should consider. I too would really like to see discussion of dynamic pricing, not just beyond 2 hours, but within that 2-hour period. I don't know if that falls within the scope of what's being asked here. Perhaps it is under implications, but if not, maybe that's a discussion for another time. I might foreshadow bringing something to the chamber to look at that more closely if it's not something we look at here, because I agree with the Smart Cities comment that Councillor Mason made. You know, we've got some great technology that we put in as a result of some of the initiatives that have been put up previously around parking, and it might be an opportunity to really use the potential of that technology to target parking, fees, or not having fees, as the case may be, to where it's needed and when to help really optimise the movements of cars around the city. But I'll support getting this report, and I look forward to seeing what it contains in February.
Thanks, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Murrahy.
Yes, I too will support this motion. I think I've got the Christmas spirit tonight. But I'm actually really encouraged by the words that have been actually used tonight, and the like the dynamic pricing, solutions, the hotspots. They're all expressions that have been used in relation to the traffic and the parking within the CBD. And I think the words in the recommendation being potential and implications are so important. And Councillor Mansfield is correct, as you look at the actual recommendation and the expressions that we've actually used seem to be outside that scope. But I think the CEO has picked up what we want, and I'm not sure whether we've actually even asked for a report similar to this before. Yet we've debated till we're blue in the face in relation to free parking. But this seems like a breath of fresh air in relation to what may come of it. So I look forward to seeing what solutions are brought forward, and I think the data, it wouldn't be too far away, because as I said, we've been discussing this for years, it seems. So I'm sure the data that exists will be right at hand, and in fact it goes alongside the task force recommendations that we spoke about earlier. So I look forward to see what the CEO produces for us.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Murrahy. Councillor Harwood.
Madam Mayor, I agree with Councillor Murrahy's comments there, and a few others around the table in relation to the way this particular notice of motion has come before us and what we're looking to achieve. Again, for using the same phrase a few times, but it's another piece of the puzzle of car parking in the city. This is just one part, the 2-hour issue. So I look forward to what the officers will bring. But I am a little sceptical. We've sort of had reports before, and they haven't really perhaps given us what we were really asking for, the depth that we really needed, and the detail. I'd really like to see a real focus on the hotspots, in particular around the hospital. We've had this conversation up the yin-yang about the hospital and what it means to people. And it's a very sensitive discussion about people who are attending that particular precinct, the pressure they're under, the stress they're feeling. Their loved ones are and themselves are, at the lowest ebbs of their lives in some respects, and it's really stressful. And a parking ticket does not go well. And I'd like to know what Barwon Health's position is in relation to potential extension of their existing car park. I'd like to know from the federal and our federal government members what support they can give us in relation to the land that's held up there by the Department of Defence. I'd like to know, what the new owner of the old Geelong jail may think about assisting in some capacity for further car parking options. I think if we can extend the conversation and bring more people in to identifying the issues that we're facing the most, I think that will help us as well. I know it's a little off tangent with the 2-hour piece, but I think the 2-hour, it's an important discussion to have, but I think it may be the precursor we need to a much bigger, broader discussion about how we're really going to have a really serious change in how we go about car parking in and around the CBD, whether that's through ownership, etc. I just think this could be the real precursor we've been looking for. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harwood. I think you hit a really good point there. We need to be really specific about what it is we want to know and make sure that it moves the conversation forward. So, yeah, good comments. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Contell to close.
A very mature discussion. Note to self to bring all controversial items on a December meeting just before Christmas. It's going well swimmingly.
And give everybody donuts.
No, thanks for that. In discussions with the officers, particularly the officer that's responsible for this area, we discussed items such as those smart solutions and how you could actually measure the amount of time that people spend in parking spots, where they park, how often they move. Obviously, that is technology that would need to be expanded on. We are using some of that technology sparingly at the moment in some areas, but there's also learnings that we could take from other cities. And so the officers are well aware that that is an area that we want to look at. And as has been mentioned by, I think, Councillor Mansfield, that some of that was introduced through previous initiatives that we've implemented. So let's work on that, and if it's not quite right by the due date, then we'll ask for some further information. But again, buoyed by the support, and thanks for councillors, or two councillors for in general supporting the notice of motion.
Councillor Contell. Okay, all those in favour of this notice of motion? Those against? Carried. Well done. Okay, so Section D is the record of informal meetings of councillors. Can I please have a mover and seconder for the record of informal meetings? Councillor Sullivan, second of Councillor Mason. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Section E is the planning delegations. May I have a mover and seconder for the planning delegations? Moved Councillor Murrahy, seconded Councillor Harwood. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. And now we move into confidential. So that was fairly quick, wasn't it? So I will need a mover and seconder to close the meeting to the public so that we can consider those confidential items. Councillor Nelson to move, Councillor Sullivan to second. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. So good night. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. The live streaming will now stop. Merry Christmas.